Hi there. Anyway, it's always a topical one, but seeing as it's sort of, is it 200 years or something since the abolition of slavery, they were talking about it in papers recently, the whole question's come up again. And the question is, should Britain and other nations apologise for their role in slavery? No! That's the answer. It really angers me. And the way people keep going on about how we should apologise for slavery. And there's a basic fundamental sort of philosophical reason for why it angers me so much, and that is, it is wrong to apologise for something that you haven't done. Okay? You know, if you've done wrong, you should apologise for it. If you haven't done wrong, why should you apologise for it? Your apology is totally meaningless, which undermines the whole principle of apologising in the first place. You know, I have never owned a slave. Believe it or not, I've never owned a slave. I never have. I promise. I've never owned a slave. I've never believed in slavery. I've never thought slavery was a good idea. I've never liked slavery. I don't have anything to do with it whatsoever. So why should I be guilted into apologising for slavery, something I haven't done? You know, there's no good reason for it. Now, I know some people who are slightly racist, who say, no, we shouldn't apologise for slavery. How dare they? How dare they? And, so my eyes went a bit funny there because I was looking at behind. Anyway, you know, but you can tell they're slightly racist because they also say, oh, and if it weren't for us, they'd be fucking swinging from trees right now, wouldn't they? Okay, whatever. I mean, whatever. You know, I'm not going to try and address whether slavery brought any good whatsoever or not. The point is, every single society throughout history has practiced slavery. The Athenians, the ancient Athenians, that model of democracy. Yeah, only people over the age of 25, I think, could vote, and below about 65, who were male. No women could vote, so that's 50% of the population gone. No foreigners could vote, and that means, like, if you weren't an Athenian, not if you weren't Greek, if you weren't an Athenian, you can vote. And guess what? No slaves could vote. Yeah, slaves. Athens had loads of slaves. Roman Empire had loads of slaves. We've all had slaves, all of us. No. Oh, excuse me. Before we got into Africa, the Arabs were busy selling slaves. Before the Arabs, the Africans. All of us, even Africans, have been involved in the slave trade. I don't think there's a single human society that hasn't had some kind of slavery at some point. It's virtually universal. That doesn't make it a right thing. Slavery's wrong. It's disgusting. But why should a whole nation be guilted? You know, and it's figures within our own nation that do the guilting, saying, oh, we've got to apologise for slavery, it was so mean, it was so nasty, oh, we're so evil. Like, beating themselves up, these upper middle class twats beating themselves up with this stupid little angst, trying to drag the rest of us down with it. Look, I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not interested in it. It's like the Germans. A lot of Germans get really, really anxious and nervous and upset about the Holocaust and everything. Because they keep being made to feel guilty about it. Look, your granddad, your great-granddad may have been an SS officer. Whatever. I mean, whatever. Under different circumstances, it could have been my great-grandfather or grandfather, or me under different circumstances. It could have been any of us. Okay? All of us have sort of problems in our nation's history, things that we're not proud of, but there's no point being ashamed of it, really, because it wasn't our fault. It's only things that we're responsible for that we should feel shame for. And it irritates me when people keep trying to bring up the wars and guilt Germans and make the Germans feel bad. And what have they done? I don't have a problem with the Germans. Seriously, if you know any Germans, trust me, Germany has a really serious guilt complex over the Holocaust. I'm not joking. I mean, it's a slight exaggeration. Not every German's all angsty about it, but I'm serious. A lot of Germans are very, very upset and very funny about it because they're so guilty feeling, a lot of them. They shouldn't be. And I don't want my country and other countries being brought down in a similar sort of thing with this whole slave trade. Look, wasn't my fault. It's nothing to do with me. I'm not going to fucking apologise. You know, end of. And anyway, while we're on the bloody topic, what about the Romans? Yeah, they invaded Britain. They invaded Britain. They invaded most of the world. You know, the Mediterranean world. You know, what about? Where's my compensation from them? The bastards. What the bastards? What about? Slightly more seriously, what about the Normans? They came to England, they invaded England. The English nation existed before 1066. They invaded England and subjected the English people to practical slavery for hundreds of years. The English were treated like second-class citizens in their own country for hundreds of years. Okay? You know, the Norman conquest happened in the mid-11th century, 1066, right? In the 14th century, it was illegal to use English in English courts. It wasn't like that before the Normans came, was it? So where the hell's my apology from France? Because Normandy's part of France now. Where's my apology? You know, they've inflicted bloody grievous mental harm on me. You know, Jesus, where... You know, I mean, if we're going to be going back, you know, I mean, where does it stop? People go, oh, the British, la-di-da. Well, what about my apology from the Romans? What about my apology from the French? What about, you know, the Indo-European peoples who swept into Europe and displaced the natives and savaged them and killed them? People don't even really exist anymore, but, you know, shouldn't we be angsting about that too? What about the Arabs who took over the whole of the Middle East and displaced so many people? And sort of, you know, these areas became Arabic and Islamic. You know, I mean, Egypt used to be a sort of Coptic Christian nation that spoke Christ, I've forgotten the language. Oh, I think it's just called Coptic. Oh, I'll look it up later. But you know, the successor language to the ancient Egyptian language. Now they speak Arabic, which is totally different because of the fucking Arabs invaded. So how you know, how absurd do we get? How many apologies does everyone have to make? It's obscene. Obscene.